The air in the grand atrium of the Olympus Starliner was perfumed with ambition and expensive cologne. Beneath a crystal dome that offered a panoramic view of the swirling blue shift of faster-than-light travel, the galaxy's elite mingled. At the center of it all was a man in an impeccably tailored suit, holding a glass of vintage Martian agave spirits. He was a titan of industry, a billionaire who had built his fortune on next-generation hydroponic systems, feeding hungry colonies. His current passion project was this very vessel, a monument to human culture he intended to gift to the Galactic Arts Consortium. Tonight was the inaugural gala, and every detail, from the floating service drones to the genetically modified orchids, was a testament to his will. Across the polished marble floor, near the service entrance, a girl sat hunched against a wall. She was slight, her clothes worn and patched, a stark anomaly amidst the glitter. She had slipped aboard at the last port, a stowaway seeking only a warm corner and perhaps a discarded pastry. Her eyes, a calm gray, watched the crowd not with envy, but with a quiet, focused intensity, as if listening to a silent song. The billionaire's gaze eventually found her. A frown etched itself onto his face. Such a blight on his perfect evening. He strode over, his entourage following like a wake. "This is a private event." His voice cut through the murmur, crisp and cold. "How did you get in here?" The girl looked up, unflinching. "The door was open, sir. I meant no trouble. I was just listening. He scoffed, a derisive sound that made several nearby guests turn. "There is nothing here for you to listen to but civilized conversation. This is a place of refinement, of art, not a refugee hostel." He gestured dismissively towards a grand, antique earth piano that stood on a low dais. It was a beautiful, rare piece, its polished ebony gleaming under the lights. "You see that? A Steinway, over 300 years old. It is played by masters, for audiences who understand its value." His eyes swept back to her, filled with contempt. "You understand nothing of the effort, the discipline, the culture that such an instrument represents." The girl's stomach chose that moment to emit a low, audible rumble. A faint pink tinged her cheeks. The billionaire's lip curled. He snapped his fingers. A drone zipped over, its tray laden with delicate canapes. He picked up a small, gold-dusted cake, holding it aloft. "You are hungry? Of course you are. This is beluga caviar from Caspia Prime, a month's salary for a dock worker." He leaned closer, his voice a theatrical whisper meant for an audience. "No piano, no food. You want sustenance? Demonstrate you belong. Play something. Show us this profound understanding you seem to have." A titter ran through the gathered crowd. It was a cruel, impossible demand. The girl was clearly homeless, likely space-borne driftwood. What could she possibly know of a complex, ancient Earth instrument? The girl looked from the billionaire's smug face to the piano, then to the morsel in his hand. For a long moment, she was still. Then, without a word, she pushed herself up. She walked slowly to the dais, her worn shoes silent on the marble. A tense, anticipatory hush fell. This was going to be a deliciously embarrassing spectacle. She stood before the piano, running her fingers just above its lid, not touching the wood. She then sat on the plush stool, which seemed to swallow her slight frame. For several seconds, she simply looked at the keys, her hands resting in her lap. The billionaire's smirk widened. He was about to pronounce judgment when she moved. Her hands lifted, and with the first touch, the atmosphere shattered. It was not a timid plinking. It was not a simple child's tune. It was a cascade of notes so pure, so powerfully resonant, that it felt like a physical wave. A complex, haunting melody filled the atrium, a piece of such emotional depth and technical ferocity that it stole the breath from every listener. It was earth music, but not the popular classics. This was a raging, sorrowful, and ultimately triumphant concerto, one that spoke of lost homes and enduring hope, of vast emptiness and the defiant spark of life within it. Her fingers flew across the keys with a precision and power that belied her fragile appearance. Mastering passages that would make a conservatory graduate weep. The billionaire stood frozen, the caviar cake forgotten in his hand. The derision in his eyes evaporated, replaced first by shock, then by a dawning, horrifying comprehension. This was no mere playing. This was mastery. Soul-deep, genius-level mastery. The music she conjured was not just sound. It was a story, a visceral experience that wrapped around the heart and squeezed. He saw colonists on the edge of terraformed deserts. He saw the lonely beauty of the nebulas outside the dome. He felt the ache of hunger that was not for food, but for belonging. She was playing the anthem of the forgotten, the symphony of the void. And it was more profoundly human, more truly art, than anything his money had ever procured. The final notes hung in the air, a vibration in the crystal, in the bones of the listeners. There was no applause. There was only a stunned, reverent silence, thick with collective awe and shame. The girl lifted her hands from the keys and looked directly at the billionaire. Her gray eyes were clear, holding no triumph, only a quiet exhaustion. The billionaire found he could not hold her gaze. He looked down at the ridiculous gold-dusted cake in his hand, a symbol of his hollow, gilded world. The contrast between its vulgarity and the sublime beauty he had just witnessed was absolute. He slowly placed it back on the drone's tray. Without a word, he turned and walked stiffly to the head steward. He spoke in a low, urgent tone. The steward's eyes widened, but he nodded briskly. The billionaire then approached the dais again, his steps heavy. He did not look at the girl, but addressed the now humbled crowd, his voice rough, stripped of its earlier arrogance. The gala will continue, but the schedule is changed. He finally glanced at the girl, who still sat quietly by the piano. You will play whatever you wish, for as long as you wish. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd, a man who had built an empire on feeding bodies, only to have a hungry girl show him he had starved his own soul. The girl did not play again that night. Instead, she was gently led away by the steward, not to the airlock, but to a suite reserved for VIPs. A warm meal, not of caviar, but of simple, hearty soup and bread, was brought to her. Clean clothes appeared. No one asked her any questions. The next evening, however, word had spread throughout the Starliner. When the girl emerged and once again took her seat at the Steinway, the atrium was packed to overflowing. Crew members in their uniforms stood shoulder to shoulder with the jeweled guests. This time, when she played, it was a softer piece, a flowing, gentle composition that felt like a sunrise after a long night. The billionaire watched from the shadows of a balcony. He listened, truly listened, for the first time. He heard the talent that had shocked him, yes, but now he heard more. He heard the resilience, the untold story, the quiet dignity. He had seen her as a problem to be removed. Now he understood she was the very heart of the culture he claimed to champion, the raw, unpredicted, and brilliant human spirit, surviving and creating beauty in the darkest corners. He did not approach her again during the voyage, but his orders were clear. She was to have anything she needed, and when the Starliner reached its destination, it was not a security detail that met her, but a representative from the most prestigious music academy in the Sol system, with a full scholarship offer, arranged and funded anonymously. As the girl, now dressed in simple but new clothes, walked down the gangway towards her new future. She paused and looked back at the gleaming hull of the Olympus. High up on an observation deck, a solitary figure watched her go. She gave a small, barely perceptible nod, not of thanks, but of acknowledgement. Then she turned her face towards the sun of a new world, the music within her no longer a hidden ghost, but a promise ready to be heard. The billionaire finally turned from the view. The project to gift the Starliner continued, but the plaque he commissioned for the grand atrium bore a new, simpler inscription. It read, "True art is not a possession. It is a voice. Listen." And in the center of the atrium, the antique Steinway waited, always ready for the next unexpected voice to speak.